Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Asuranandana Varijana Ranjana Asuranandana Varijana Ranjana Kamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Asuranandana Varijana Ranjana Asuranandana Varijana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Swami Prabhupada ki Jai ISKCON Govardhana ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Govardhana All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to Shiva and Shigaranga. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 18, verses 14 and 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Jan Amasita Swasam Manu Pachalitendriya Asadya Tarasadaichu Gadaya Nahanadarim Shri Jan Amasita Swasam Manu Prachalatendriya Asadya Tarasadaichu Kadaya Nyahanadarim Shrijanamasita Swasam Manu Prachalatendriya Asadya Tarasadaichu Kadaya Nyahanadarim Shrijanamasita Swasam Manu Prachalatendriya Asadya Tarasadaichu Gadaya Nyahanadarim Shrijanamasita Swasam Manu Prachalatendriya Asadya Tarasadaichu Gadaya Nyahanadarim. Word for word. Srijan, giving out. Amasitaha, being angry. Swasam, breathes or breaths. Manu, by wrath. Prachalata, agitated. Indriyaha, who senses. Asadya, attacking. Tarasa, quickly. Daichaha, the demon. Gadaya, with his mace. Nahayanat, struck. Harim, Lord Hari. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Hissing indignantly, all his senses shaken by wrath, the demon quickly sprang upon the Lord and dealt him a blow with his powerful mace. So no purport, go on to text 15. Bhagavam Sugadavegam Vrishishtam Rupano Rasi Avanchayat Tiraschino Yogarudra Hivantakam. The Lord, however, by moving slightly aside, dodged that violent mace blow aimed at his breast by their enemy, just as an accomplished yogi would elude death. Purport. The example is given herein that the perfect yogi can overcome a death blow, although it is offered by the laws of nature. It is useless for a demon to beat the transcendental body of the Lord with a powerful mace, for no one can surpass his prowess. Those who are advanced transcendentalists are freed from the laws of nature, and even a death blow cannot act on them. Superficially, it may be seen that a yogi is attacked by a death blow, but by the grace of the Lord, He can overcome many such attacks for the service of the Lord, as the Lord exists by his own independent prowess. By the grace of the Lord, the devotees also exist for his service. I'm going to diminish. So Lord Varaha, in the shape of a boar battling Hiranyaksha. So we can see that in this material world there is always a battle against good and evil, isn't it? Hollywood makes billions of dollars on that very point, battling good and evil. And sometimes different religious traditions, Christian, Islam, sometimes they present that God is battling evil or battling the devil, battling Satan, whatever, and it's an ongoing battle. It's like the presentation is almost like God is struggling. He's struggling to overcome evil. He's doing his best, but the struggle goes on. There was one priest who he wrote a book called Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? And his presentation was, well, God tries his best, but sometimes it just gets out of hand. That was like the purport to the book. That he does his best, but what can he do? Sometimes things happen. So, and we've got within the Hollywood realm, we've got, have you ever done any media studies? Joseph Campbell, name always comes up. He's like the guru of the hero's journey genre. And there's a whole, so many different points along the way of that journey. Like it's like an unwilling person is forced into or obliged to take up a major challenge or task or what's the other word? Task, challenge. Anyway, you get the understanding. And along the way, he develops certain skills, or she develops certain skills. A mentor comes along to help them. And there's sometimes, there's setbacks and sometimes there's victories, but ultimately the hero is successful. So that's like the hero's journey. So, films like Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, all that sort of thing. This is the hero's journey, battling good over evil. But when we're talking about with Krishna, it's not that he's struggling to overcome evil. For him, in this particular pastime, he's having fun. He comes to the material world with that fighting prowess. And it's like, young boys, fighting each other. It's not serious, it's just having fun. So it's the same principle. It's not that Krishna is struggling to overcome, he's having fun. And the person that he's fighting against, he has no enmity or anger against them. They're spirit souls, part and parcel. But at that particular time, they're playing the role of the enemy, so that Krishna can enjoy his pastimes. So, so this concept of good and evil, everything originates with Krishna. So Krishna fighting the demons in the material world, this is like the origin of the hero's journey story that, again and again, Krishna comes down to this material world to deliver the pious, annihilate miscreants, and re-establish religious principles. So that's there every time, but there's just different circumstances, different characters involved in this sort of leela, these pastimes. Krishna, he doesn't interfere with our free will. But some people, they choose to live in darkness, living in illusion, impious life. So for them, they are always battling against the material energy, unless or until they take shelter of Krishna. They're always battling against the material energy, and that's, if you reject or ignore Krishna's superior position, then that's what's going to happen. It's just you and the material energy. And as a result, we hear in Bhagavatam, padam padam yadvi padam, that there is danger at every step. Whether materially or spiritually, if we reject Krishna position, devotional service, well, this is danger to our spiritual path. But also, if materially speaking, we're thinking that we're the centre of the universe, everything revolves around us, there's going to be danger at every step. The Durga, she's going to be poking us with the 3 prongs on a trident. So suffering coming from material, like natural disasters, suffering come from other living entities, and suffering come from our own mind and body. So these are the 3 kleshas, or the 3 sufferings of the material energy. In one class in London, 1973, Prabhupada was speaking that when death will come, nobody can check. Death is God. When Krishna desires that this man should be killed now, he must die now, nobody can check. Rakhe Krishna Mare Ke, Mare Krishna Rakhe Ke, that if Krishna desires to kill somebody, nobody can save them, and if Krishna desires to save somebody, nobody can kill them. So this is Krishna's protection. So ultimately it's all up to Krishna's arrangement, and he works for the materialist, he works through the material energy, that he may be saving somebody, he may be killing somebody, but just according to one's karmic situation. But as Prabhupada says, the yogi can avoid that death blow if one takes shelter of Krishna. So even though eventually everybody dies, these material bodies aren't eternal, but even in this life, Krishna can protect us from, great danger. But at the time of leaving this body, for a devotee, death comes as Krishna. For the materialist, Krishna comes as death. So eventually we have to leave this body, but if we're taking shelter of Krishna, then he protects us in so many ways, and he puts us in a position there we can continue our devotional service. So you see in the Battle of Kurukshetra, at the beginning, Bhishma and the Kauravas, they're all blowing their conch shells. And Prabhupada comments that the sound of those conch shells signalled defeat. But Krishna and the Pandavas, they blew their conch shells on the other side, and that conch shells signalled victory. So same thing, blowing conch shells, but one is opposite meaning to the other, because the Bhishma and the Kauravas are opposing Krishna. So where can there be victory when you're opposing Krishna? But for Arjuna and the Pandavas blowing their conch, that indicates victory because Krishna is on their side. So if we put ourselves into Krishna's camp, there always will be victory. But if we oppose Krishna, there can never be victory. So this sort of fear of death is very prominent. And we see so many industries, just like Hollywood, is making lots of money about this overcoming, or, evil fighting good, that sort of concept. But that fearing propensity, like insurance companies are making billions of dollars a year about the fearing propensity, that you get life insurance. It's almost presenting, if you got life insurance, you won't die. That's almost like how it's being presented. But, if your house, your car, so many different things, they can get insurance. It's all based on fear that if something happens, you're covered. And Big Pharma, they're selling so many medications, also on this same principle. If you take these medicine, you won't get sick, or if you are sick, you take this medicine and you'll get better. But it's all based on that fearing propensity. And security, that Olympic Games we had in Paris recently, they spent $1 billion with a B, $1 billion on security. That fearing propensity to stop bad people coming in, to protect the good people, that sort of principle. So that's a lot of money, just that fearing. And military, of course, we have to have a military because we're fearful someone will come to attack us. So again, it's just based on this fearing propensity. And everything we do in our own lives, there's that fearing propensity there that we might get hurt, we might, in danger of being killed. We're just always fearful. That we can't avoid death as far as the mature body goes. It's basically through the influence of time that death is coming. And Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada, he comments that that time is the impersonal representation of Krishna. So, Krishna mentions himself that time I am destroyer of the worlds, just before the battle began. Time I am destroyer of the worlds, and I have come to destroy all people except you, the Pandavas, because they were his devotees. But everyone else is going to be destroyed by that influence of time, which ultimately Krishna himself. So for those who, like Prabhupada says, the yogi, particularly the bhakti yogi, can avoid that death blow. We have that example of Srila Prabhupada. He's sailing across the ocean, the Jaladuta, coming to the US. He had 2 heart attacks along the way, and he was thinking, if I have a third one, that'll be it. That'll be the end of me. But that night he had a dream that Krishna and all the avatars were coming rowing on a boat, and Krishna saying, don't worry, I'll take care of everything. So in that way, Prabhupada was able to get to his destination. So Krishna is giving all protection. And we have the example of Dhruva Maharaj, that at the time of leaving his body, the Vaikuntha airplane's coming to take him back to the spiritual world, and death personified was there in front of him. And just as he was about to step onto the aircraft, death personified bowed down, and Dhruva Maharaj used death personified as a stepping stone to get into the aircraft. So for a devotee under the protection of Krishna, even death personified becomes your servant. It doesn't become your adversary. And Maharaj Parikshit, when he was in the womb of his mother, Uttara, Ashvatthama sent the Brahmastra weapon. He'd killed so many the descendants of the Pandavas, and the last descendant was Maharaj Parikshit. Even while he was still in the womb, he was going to try to kill Maharaj Parikshit. But when that Brahmastra weapon was coming, Krishna appeared in a very small form and gave him all protection. So Parikshit means the examiner. So Maharaj Parikshit, within the womb, he was seeing that form of Krishna. So for the rest of his life, he was always examining everybody. Where is that form that saved me within the womb? So there's other stories, how the yogi, the devotee, is protected from that death blow. There was, Indradu Maharaj tells a story that there was one young man in Russia, and he met the devotees, and he was telling the story that he, on weekends he would sort of go downtown and sit in the sun on the cappuccino strip and have his coffee, whatever, and every now and then the devotees in the Harinam party would come past and waving to everybody, and this boy, Nikolai, his name was Nikolai, every now and then he'd wave back and, that's all good. So that happened a few times. And then Nikolai explains that one day in his apartment, he was lying in his bed and there was some sort of medical issue that he had, and next thing he knows, he's out of his body. He's looking down on his body, and then there's two big, grotesque beings either side taking an arm and dragging him off down this tunnel of light. This is how he's explained it. So he didn't know at the time, but these were the Yamadutas that had come to take him to the court of Yamaraj. And, he was obviously completely terror-stricken, no idea what's going on. Then all of a sudden he finds himself in this big court, and this stern-looking Yamaraj is there. All the other souls like himself are lined up waiting for judgment. And eventually Nikolai, it's his turn. So Yamaraj speaks to his assistant, what's Yamaraj's assistant? Chitragupta. So he says to that's his secretary, Chitragupta, so what impious acts has this soul done? And so he was reading a big long list, and Nikolai, he said everything was there, things that he'd completely forgotten about, everything was on the list. So Yamaraj is looking very sternly, so what pious things has he done? And Chitragupta looked at the list and said, he actually waved to the Harinam party. And everybody in the court went, oh, that was a big thing. And Yamaraj says, really? So how many times did he wave? And Chitragupta said he waved 4 times. Oh. And so Yamaraj's looking at him and he said, so if I send you back, what will you do? And Nikolai said, I'm going to join the Hare Krishnas. And the next thing he knows, he's back in his body in his apartment. So that was the experience. And so immediately he packed up everything and went knocking on the temple door. Let me in, quick. So that's how he come to be a devotee, special mercy of Yamaraj. There was another story. This one young brahmachari in the US, very enthusiastic, preaching so many things. But at one point he took sannyas, accepted sannyas in Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada, after the initiation, Prabhupada said, so what is your plan? And so this sannyasi, I do forget his name, but this sannyasi, he said, so Srila Prabhupada, I'd like to go and speak in the Middle Eastern countries. And Prabhupada was so happy with that. Says, yes, you go and do that, and at the end of your life, I will personally come back and take you back to Godhead. So with that blessing, this sannyasi went off to the Middle East, whether it was Iran or somewhere in the Middle East, and he was actively preaching and having some success. But after some years, he come back to the US. But then he sort of lost some enthusiasm, all the old sort of hippie habits started to come back, and he sort of just fell away from devotional service, just become quite degraded in one sense. And eventually he actually caught a terminal disease. So he was there in the hospital on his deathbed. There were some doctors standing around, and they were discussing that any moment he's going to leave. And then all of a sudden, this sannyasi, he sits up in bed and looking at the doorway with a big smile on his face. The doctors look around, they can't see anything. And this devotee, he says, oh, Prabhupada, you have come. He just fell down and left his body. So, even after leaving devotional service, Prabhupada maintained that promise. So, the yogi been saved by the death blow of the material energy by the grace of Srila Prabhupada. And it's another story I heard in the mid-90s or so, somewhere, I think. And there was a group of about 5 or 6 devotees in a European airport. It might have been Belgium somewhere, but And they were waiting for the flight, and all of a sudden, every devotee remembered they had to do something. Had to go on this or that, get something to eat, go to the bathroom, whatever. All 5 of them, all of a sudden, remembered they had to go somewhere. So, okay, we'll meet back here in about 15 minutes. And just after they left, that very same spot, there was a terrorist attack. And they started, terrorist shooting, grenades. A lot of people were killed on that very spot where they were waiting. So, Krishna, a super soul, just inspired them all, go away and find something to do. So they were saved. So again, the yogis were saved by the death blow. So a lot of stories we hear like that, whether in this life we're saved or at their time of death we're promoted to a very auspicious place. Either way, we take short of Krishna, that death blow will have no meaning to us. And one famous class of Prabhupada he tells a story of the sadhu who walks into a village and he gives 4 blessings. So the first blessing he gives to the prince, the son of the king, and he says, "May you live forever." And so the meaning of that was that you're living a very, sort of licentious, sort of degraded, because he got wealth and prestige, and he's just caught up in trying to enjoy this material world. So the sadhu said, enjoy as much as you can, because at the end of this life, you'll have to receive the reaction for all that sinful activity, that impious activity. So the blessing was live forever, because, it's a dark future waiting for you. The next blessing was to the butcher. He said, he says, don't live, don't die. So for the butcher, very, horrible job, killing, chopping up animals, and at the end of his life, he's going to have to suffer as a result. So the blessing, don't live, don't die. Either way, you're living a, very dark life. Next blessing to the brahmachari says, may you die immediately. In that the brahmachari is performing so many austerities and, just struggling with the mind and senses. And so the sadhu is saying, at the moment you're fixed up properly in Krishna consciousness. So instead of, going through all this austerities, may you die immediately, and because you're in the proper consciousness, you achieve a very pious destination. And the last blessing was to the devotee. It says, either you live or either you die. It's all the same. So for that devotee, he's performing devotional service. At the end of their life, the service continues. So living or dying doesn't make any difference. So really for that yogi who avoids the death blow, this is the blessing. Either live or die, it doesn't matter. You always be under the protection of Krishna. So it's quite interesting that even though we're talking about the fighting between Varaha and Hiranyaksha, but Prabhupada draws out these different points that, he's saying it's very foolish for the demon thinking they can defeat Krishna. That's what they're trying to do, so many of these demons. The previous verse mentioned about Ravan. Ravana is thinking he's going to kill Ram, but obviously, he's just a jiva. He might be very powerful materially, but he's a jiva, living entity. And Krishna, being the Supreme Personality in the form of Lord Ramachandra, there's no question of overcoming. Like we mentioned in the beginning, this battle of good and evil is just sports. It's sports for Krishna. It's not struggling to overcome. I'm doing my best. Somehow or other, this evil has become so strong that I'm struggling to overcome. There's no question of that. But it's just sports for him. And even with the Kshatriyas in the Vedic times, they'd come on the battlefield, that it was like sportsman sort of mentality, that they're showing each other their prowess, that how good they are at military arts. And they know if they get killed on the battlefield, they're elevated to the heavenly planets. That's their goal. So there's no loss or diminution in that way. So again, that sort of sporting attitude is there of Krishna. He enjoys these fighting pastimes. Therefore, he arranges for different personalities. And in this case, Hiranyakasipu is his devotees, Jai and Vijay. They come down and take the role of demons. So it allows Krishna to engage in these fighting pastimes. So it is useless for a demon to beat the transcendental body of the Lord of a powerful mace, for no one can surpass his prowess. So the reason why people may think that they can do that, because it's due to envy. If I accept that Krishna is the supreme person, automatically that means it's not me. I'm giving it to position to someone else, so therefore it's not me. And that's too painful for, the conditioned soul that, I'm not the centre of the universe? No, it can't be. So they become very envious and want to deny Krishna's position. But those who are advanced transcendentalists are freed from the laws of nature, and even a death blow cannot act on them. So, of course, we're all eternal living entities, but for those who materially conditioned, that at the time of death they have to take repeated birth and death, just the samsara cycle, repeated birth and death. But for the devotee, at the end of this life, this is the last birth of that cycle. So by the grace of the Lord, he can overcome many such attacks for the service of the Lord. As the Lord exists by his own independent prowess, by the grace of the Lord, the devotees also exist eternally for his service. So perhaps we'll end there. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? Just wait for the mic, sorry.
When Krishna left this world, he received an arrow.
Yeah.
When Krishna left the material world, he received an arrow in the foot.
Yeah.
So I guess people that don't believe that Krishna is a supreme think that he may have, succumbed to death.
Yeah, well, that's exactly why. So for the atheist, it fulfills the desires of the atheist. Just see, we knew he was an ordinary person. There's his body. He was killed by a hunter. So how can he be the supreme? So he's just, that just shows the magnanimity of Krishna, that even for the atheist, he fulfills their desires. Just, Krishna's an ordinary person. There's his body. Get over it. So it's a good point.
Thank you for the class. So essentially, someone in Krishna consciousness doesn't necessarily have to fear much because they understand that everything is by the will of the Lord. So ultimately, it doesn't really matter what you think or fear because it's all going to end up how Krishna wants it anyway.
Yeah, ultimately, if one has full faith, that's the ultimate reality of the understanding. In our conditioned state, it's sometimes hard to always, have that mentality that we just engage in devotional service. Krishna looks after everything. Our conditioned state is that we have to do something to protect us or to help us or whatever. But as you say, the ultimate reality is Krishna's looking. If you put ourselves in Krishna's camp, he looks after everything.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.